Hey guys, this is Mr. V over here doing a book review today for the book 1984 by George Orwell. Just so you guys know right from the beginning, I try to do a spoiler-free review, so occasionally if you see me looking down, I just have some notes to not give you any spoilers. So, and if I give you any spoilers, they're just minor spoilers. So anyway, let's get on with the book review, 1984 by George Orwell. So the basic premise for this book is it's a futuristic, this guy, Winston Smith, he lives in like a futuristic city or town called Oceania, which was previously Great Britain, and it is basically controlled by what is known as Big Brother. There's multiple pictures up for Big Brother, and it's just a guy with a black mustache. And there's cameras all over the city. There's hidden microphones all over the cities. There's cameras in your house, microphones in your house. Everywhere is under surveillance of Big Brother. And Winston does not like Big Brother, but he can't let it be known. And I'll get more into that about during the review, but it's basically just about Winston Smith and his troubles with living in Oceania. Before I get further into the book review, one thing you guys should know is, please, when you read this book, try not to let your own political feelings overwhelm you when reading this book. Because while this is a fictional book, this does have a political undertone, obviously. And that's why I don't let those feelings like change your view of the book or get angry or sad or anything like that. All right, so as for the book review, so I thought this was a great book. I thought that this book was great because it just started with a bang. Like, it was just amazing right from the beginning. Orwell sets the mystery and like creepiness right from the beginning, right within a few pages, because like Winston is like just writing in a journal and he is like worried, and then it's just there's that mystery begins about like why is he so worried, and you know he talks about like some of those cameras and those microphones, and you start to wonder like what is going on, and that leads into like the creepiness as well, because he talks briefly about Big Brother and you know just a brief thing about how they can watch you and they can listen in, and no one is sure on if they're just doing little bits or if they're watching you 24/7 or what's going on. So you know it's just, and then also yeah there's the what he calls the thought police, that if Big Brother feels you are not conforming to their society, then the thought police come and get you in the middle of the night and then you disappear. People aren't sure if they kill you or if you go to an account, but you completely disappear. And that all happens within the first chapter. So you could see that he just starts with a complete bang, like, but you should know that, you know, that mystery and drama and creepiness, you know, it maintains throughout the book. You know, so Orwell does a great job of that, because, you know, you do wonder like how the world got into this, because this was previously Great Britain and now it's like Oceania, and is within 40 years, it has turned from the, you know, Britain it just was fine, and then all of a sudden everything is under surveillance and you have to conform to Big Brother, things like that. So, you know, and Winston, the main character, you know, he doesn't like it, and he wants to rebel, but he can't because he's worried about things like the thought police. You know, so that's what, you know, it was a really cool thing about that. And even when he like talks to people, you wonder like, are those people going to turn him in? Will they betray him in some way? Will Winston betray them? You know, will the thought police, are these people spies? You know, there's a lot of mystery that goes throughout the whole book, and you know Orwell does a great job of keeping you entertained for that aspect. And you know, because you never know what will happen next. Like even when it was getting towards the end of the book, I could tell it was getting towards the end, and I was like, I still didn't know what was going to happen, like chapter by chapter. Even towards the end, you're like, you know, how is this book going to end? Like what's going to happen, you know? So that's why I said Orwell did a great job of that. And it does show though, like Orwell was showing, of course this is a fictional book, but what's really cool about the book is it shows a lot of like real life scenarios, in that like it shows kind of the scariness of if someone, like some entity, gets too much power, especially in this book, it's the government that has too much power. And it's like what that can cause. It's like, everybody's under surveillance. There's cameras in your house. There's microphones, secret microphones. There's some spies, and then it's like they have what's called the thought police, that even if you have like a slight, like you don't react exactly how they want, even when in your face, anything like that, the thought police may come in the middle of the night and just take you away, and then you completely disappear. And, no one asks any questions because they don't want to be taken away by the thought police and killed or anything like that. And it's like, it's just life. It just keeps going. And it's, he kind of shows that, like the scariness of that, and how like everyone's like, I wrote, like some people are like, you're living in like paranoia nonstop, everyone is suspicious of everyone else. They pretend you're their friends or their acquaintances, but they're still suspicious of each other because they're wondering like, are you part of the thought police? Are you going to report me? And, it's like the people are always looking over their shoulder in this town, and it's like they know, and like Winston knows that the big brother wants to get rid of people that may rebel. So it's like the book is really good in those regards. And, it just shows that like most of the time you're living in fear. And that's why, even though it's like a fictional book, I said it like shows you some real life situations of what happens if someone gets too much power, because that has happened in history. Even in the last 100 years, that has happened a lot. And I think that's one of the aims of this book. If you go back to, Hitler or Mao or Stalin, or even under Castro, things like that, like all these things happen. He's doing a fictional version of it, but it's, that stuff really happens. So that's why it's pretty scary when you are reading it, because it's like in the book, it's like nobody is challenging because nobody wants to be taken by the thought police, and it's like you may be found guilty even if you're innocent, and that's what everyone's afraid of. And it's just, it's a great look into what happens if somebody or the government gets just way too much power, but also like what it's like for the people living under that society, like what it's like for people like Winston or his colleagues. And it's like he wants to rebel, he doesn't like Big Brother, but he is scared to rebel because he doesn't know who he can trust, who he can't trust. Will someone turn him in? What if he says something wrong? What happens? And it's like and that's why it's like it just shows like what the people were living under. And as I said, it's happened many times. I mentioned many situations just right now in real life where it's happened, and it makes you wonder, like, the scariness of that. And that's why this book, while there is no like physical violence or anything like that, it is so psychologically scary. Because, it's just like someone does something wrong, or you're not even sure what they did wrong, and just people like disappear, and then there's no questions asked. And then people like Winston, they hate that world, but then there's no way out. Like, what is he going to do? Because then he has like three choices. He can like overthrow the government at that point. He can either kill himself or just obey the government. And, it's a scary situation, because he even said in the book, it's like, it seems like an overthrow is impossible. And if you look back in real history, it's like, think if you were in like Nazi Germany in like 1938, and it's like it would have been basically impossible to overthrow someone like Hitler. And then it's like, if they get word you're going to overthrow them, the Nazis come and kill you. So it's either you join the Nazis or you kill yourself. And it's like, those are the type of things that Orwell is talking about in the book. He's just doing a fictionalized version of it, but that kind of stuff really happens. And that's why this book was entertaining, but it was also like psychologically very scary, because people have gone through this, but it's like, okay, so what is Winston going to do? And how can he know to trust certain people? And because, as he said in the book, Big Brother's everywhere. There's cameras all over the place, hidden microphones, people, everything like that. So there's a lot of intensity in this book. And, it is a lot of fun. But some of the things that I did not like about the book, there weren't many, but some of the things I didn't like about the book were that the characters lacked depth. There wasn't much depth to the character. I don't know if that was on purpose, if like Orwell did it because they were kind of meant to be seen as like everyone is exactly the same, or I don't know, because even like there's in the book, like if you want to get married, you have to like go to a committee and they can appoint if you're married or not, type of thing. So I don't know if Orwell was trying to like make the characters not have much depth, but even the characters you get to know, they don't have much depth. So that was one thing that I would say wasn't very good about the book. But for the most part, I thought that, it flows pretty smoothly and consistently throughout the whole book. And, I was really surprised. There was only little bits and pieces here and there where I was like, okay, you could have shortened it a bit. But then again, maybe it would have changed the whole book. So it's tough to say. But, that was like really the only downfall to the book, because I also thought that it had a nice end in that it wrapped it up very nicely. And, there was like no unanswered questions at the end. It was very nice ending, how they wrapped it up like that, and everything was answered. But what was also very interesting about the book, where was that there's an appendix after, and the appendix is 10 pages or more, and it's interesting, or 20 pages. What's interesting is reading the appendix. It was right after, literally the book says the end, and then there's the appendix. And what was interesting is I read the appendix, and then it kind of, I can't really say much about it because I don't want to spoil anything, but it kind of like opens up a whole new like craziness to the story. It's too hard to explain without spoiling anything. There's if you guys read the appendix, you can go online and see what people say about it, but it was really cool because it like adds a whole nother level to the story. And that was another really cool element, is that the book literally ended and said the end, then there's the appendix, and you read the appendix, and then it adds like a whole new level to the whole book before that you had just read. So, that was really cool. And, I just really enjoyed this story. I thought it was well done. And, I highly recommend it. I'm going to rate it right now. But you guys should know about my rating system. I always rate books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being awful, a 5 is average, and a 10 is phenomenal. Like, that should be your next read. Very few reach the 0, just as very few reach the 10, because a 5 is average. And if you look at some of my other book reviews, I am known to be a pretty tough critic. So it's hard to even move up 0.5 in my rating system. So for 1984 by George Orwell, it was very difficult for me to rate this book. But I am going to rate this a 10, which is the highest rating you can get. And there's only a handful of books that have ever gotten a 10 from me. Because again, I'm a very tough critic. But I thought that George Orwell, while this story is not perfect, he just showed the whole picture. You got the feeling of what it was like living as Winston. You saw who Winston was. He progressed the story smoothly. There wasn't much character depth, but he progressed it smoothly. You got to know who different people were. You were always like psychologically engaged. You wanted to know what was going to happen, and you just never knew what was going to happen. And then the ending was like phenomenal. And then he added the appendix, which added a whole nother level. So it was just, and that's why, again, 5 is average, but I'm going to rank this a 10 out of 10, which only a few books have ever gotten from me. So I highly recommend that you guys go and read this book. If you guys have any disagreements or any comments, please leave that in the comments below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy your reading.